No new infections of COVID-19 in Muskoka. We take another look back at the G8 summit. And a new type of business in Ontario is cropping up in the district. All that and more coming up right now. Welcome to Cogeco News for June the 24th. I'm James Bowler with what's happening in your community. Well, good news, no new infections to report in Muskoka. The Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit reported only 2 new confirmed infections, both in the Simcoe side of the border. And also, you may remember that this reporter was tested earlier this week at one of the new drive-in testing centers. That is, they are open in Huntsville, by the way, until Sunday. My test for COVID-19 officially came back negative as well. But with all these signs of the virus's grip starting to loosen, we definitely are not out of the woods just yet. Earlier this week, I spoke with Dr. Mark Cameron, an immunologist in the U.S., about the second wave possibility and vaccination timeline.
One of the interesting parts of this phased return to normalcy in Canada is to really treat the data and the communities as regional. Which means that they can roll out different phases in different areas of the province or different areas in Canada, because each individual geography and community is different and has been impacted differently by COVID-19. So I like that part of the plan in order to really target the areas where the virus may be most present. And slow reopening down in those areas is a good part of the plan. Unfortunately, we are a community that travels. We are a mobile population, whether Canada or the US, we get around. And it's hard to think of regions as truly blocked off or that would have borders around them where transmissions wouldn't come in or go out. The fact that the Canadian-US border is still closed, I think, is helping the situation because some border states in the US are indeed seeing increased numbers. Even Ohio now is starting to return to increased numbers just in the last week. And for a while, we were an exemplary state in flattening our curve and keeping it there. But the cost of reopening gradually here, but still quite quickly, is now catching up to us in Ohio. And we are just on the other side of the lake from Canada. So the travel restrictions, the border closures, limiting international travel or, flights, keeping non-essential travel or passages across the border, I think still have to be part of the plan, as difficult it is for someone like me who wants to come visit my parents in the Toronto area. It is an important part of infection control. And the real question here is, how long do we have to keep those things up? As Canada comes down the back of its curve beside a country like the US that is not, in fact, we are increasing our numbers, these become difficult decisions to make. These become international discussions. Again, we don't want to jeopardize the progress that's been made in Ontario and Canada by opening up too quickly. Things like international travel, large gatherings, sports events, congregations, those will be the last to be taken off because they are the most risky.
So last time we talked about vaccines. At that time, you were projecting fall, I think, of next year to have a final global-wide vaccine being distributed. Are you still sticking with that timeline? And also, can you tell me a bit about the vaccination process development? I've seen different types of stories coming out about different types of vaccinations that could work. So just tell me about that as well.
Right. So vaccine development has continued at warp speed. I believe that's the way we were putting it the last time we talked. There are several vaccine candidates that are making quick progress, quicker than I would have imagined at the time we last spoke, through the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials. So the news out of vaccine development is quite positive. The two front runners of vaccines right now are an mRNA vaccine, which is a brand new platform, and an adenovirus-based vaccine, which is also a little older of a platform, but still relatively new. Those two frontline or front-running vaccine candidates have never been commercialized, have never made it to market. They are that new. Now they're easy to implement. If they prove to be effective and safe in these clinical trials, they are actually more easily manufactured and rolled out to the millions of doses that are going to be required in the next 6 to 8 months. However, they have not been rolled out to market. There are potential pitfalls through these clinical trials that we may not even understand at this point. So everything still has to go essentially perfectly in terms of these vaccines' efficacy and their safety to see a vaccine in early 2021 as they are most optimistically hoping for. It would really have to work, and it would really have to be effective to roll out that quickly. Now, there are more traditional vaccines that are also being developed at the same time. The essential plan here is we will be pushing these vaccine candidates all at the same time. It's going to cost a lot of money, but it really is hedging our bets. If these next generation vaccines don't make it through the clinical trial process, there's the more traditional vaccines that we can fall back on. They take longer in terms of manufacture and roll out to the millions of doses that are going to be required. So if we have to fall back on traditional vaccines, we're still looking at that original projection of 12 to 18 months way back when this all started. But the good news is this is all happening really quickly. And even if we have to rely on more traditional vaccines that might take a little longer to make it to market, we're still talking about 2021. We're still talking about the near future. It could have been years, but the progress is going very well so far and very quickly. So I think we will see a vaccine in 2020.
We are taking our first break, but stay tuned for more after this. Welcome back. 4 new marijuana dispensaries are set to open in Muskoka, the first of their kind for this area. Now, earlier today, I chatted with the owner of one of these potential stores. Huntsville may be getting its first marijuana dispensary very soon. Shelby Behrens-Stevenson, owner of the Mellow Moose in town, has applied to become one of the first 4 pot shops in Muskoka. The business owner says her new store, Toke, is a natural move for her, expanding on a business she already owns, which is focused on the marijuana culture.
So I've been in this industry for a long time, and I just love my customers and I love the product, and I think that this industry has so much potential, and I want to be a part of it.
Behrens-Stevenson says the process of applying for a dispensary license through the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario has been relatively straightforward.
So a lot of background checks. There has been some initial investment. And then right now we're in the public notice period. So after that, hopefully we get our final inspection and approval, and we're hoping to be open by early to mid-July.
She says even with opening the Mellow Moose, she's always felt accepted in this community and hopes to inspire other women who want to open a business.
With Mellow Moose, selling related product, this town has been great to me. The area has been great to me. I see a lot more, cannabis is already so much more accepted now, so I just see that becoming more normalized. I mean, it's trying at times, and it's a lot of work, but it's so rewarding.
That feeling of acceptance is definitely felt next door to the proposed location for Toke, where Orbis owner STACEY Thornton says she's proud of her fellow entrepreneur for taking the risk on expanding.
I think it'll help bring people to this area in downtown Huntsville. There's not very much knowledge of Brunel Road having different businesses up here. So I think it'll help bring people up this way. And I think Shelby's an incredible entrepreneur, and I think she's going to do a great job with it.
We are back to the break, but stay tuned for some details on how you can stay active during these stressful times. Welcome back. Well, Muskoka residents looking to get fit during these stressful times now have the opportunity to take their workouts outside.
We're going to start with some tire flips. Well, I think at first, when it first came in, it was overwhelming, not just for us, but obviously for everyone. You're kind of in a state of shock. So the first 2 weeks, I think we were just trying to get by. And what we were managing on doing is just holding some online classes free, just to make sure that people were still like staying somewhat consistent with their routine. Because I think that's where everybody kind of just fell off, was I'm in survival mode, I'm going to eat. And that's okay, because everybody had their way of reaction or sleep or whatever it was just to get by. But then we realized that this is going on longer than what we thought, maybe. And so I need to be able to put my health as a priority, and I need to get active, because we also know that So many people have issues with anxiety and depression, and this has magnified that. So thankfully we got the go ahead for phase 2 in order to be able to do some training outside, and as well with them allowing us to increase the amount of people that we're allowed to have, we were able to hit up more people. So we've now just started doing some outdoor boot camps. So we have those available. We're trying to hold 2 to 3 of those outdoor boot camps a week. We've started kids classes, which is awesome. Our first one was just this past Tuesday. It was a huge success. The kids loved it. And I feel like that's been a big stress for people as well, for parents, trying to keep their kids motivated. We do mountain climbers, and we do hop and drags. I would just encourage people to get up, get moving, and give it a whirl. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised.
We're taking another quick break, but we've been following through with the G8 anniversary. We've got more details on that coming up next. Welcome back, and joining me once again this time back in studio is my boss and colleague Scott Acton. And Scott, we've been talking a bit this week about this is the 10th anniversary of the G8 Summit in Huntsville. So during the week you've given us a few kind of look backs to what happened during that time. Today you had an opportunity to speak with the man who really helped bring this together, Tony Clement.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, again, it's hard to believe it's been 10 years, and this week has been interesting for me because, of course, I did cover the event 10 years ago. So this week, going through the archives, of course, yesterday I spoke with former Mayor Dowdy. This morning I had a chance to speak with former MP Tony Clement, and he reflected, and I think we've got a few clips here we can take a look at.
Let's take a look.
We were able to show ourselves to the entire world, and indeed, there was a lot of positive tourism that followed that, and interest in business and so on. So it definitely took Muskoka to another level. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say, which is less remembered, is the actual results of the Muskoka G8 Summit. There was something that came out of it called the Muskoka Initiative, which was a worldwide agreement to focus a lot of our energy, attention, and money onto maternal and child health to get better health outcomes for pregnant moms and young moms, and that would help the growth and development around the world. And in fact, that has happened. The results are in, that it's been a great success. And the greatest success that I can say about it is that even after Justin Trudeau was elected, he continued on along that path as well. So it has bipartisan support for sure.
So as you can see, Tony, 10 years later, still feels the G8 was a good thing for this community, obviously the infrastructure and things like that. So yesterday, you'll recall, I asked former Mayor Dowdy about some highlights for him, And you'll find that Tony's highlights are very similar, and that was really meeting the leaders of the free world that were here.
Claude and Kim and myself and my wife Lynn were part of the welcoming party. So we got to welcome every leader except Nicolas Sarkozy of France, who did not deign to grace us with his presence. But the rest of the leaders did show up. The guy with the most makeup was Silvio Berlusconi of Italy. He had more makeup than my wife. So that was kind of interesting. But Obama, what I remember is, first of all, his Secret Service agents scoured Deerhurst Resort and the golf course and came away with 200 golf balls when they were lurking in the woods, making sure that the place was safe for President Obama. Obama lands about 200 yards away from us on Marine One, so the helicopter lands, basically on the golf course, on the fairway. The door opens. The Navy officers step out and salute. Obama emerges, and then just sort of takes a look around. He just looks this way, then looks that way. He's still on the stairs. Then he walks off the stairs and he ambles. And I'm thinking to myself, I guess if you're the president of the United States, everybody's waiting for you. You don't have to, you can take all the time you want. So he's walking along the fairway and he's just taking it all in. He finally is greeted by us and he says to us, "Boy, this is a mighty fine golf course you got here." And I said, "Well, Mr. President, you and Michelle are welcome back anytime. If you want to be golfing in Muskoka, you'd always be welcome."
So some interesting perspectives here, Scott, but as I'm sure many of us remember, there was some controversy that happened that came with the G8 in Huntsville.
There was plenty of controversy. Of course, the $40 to $50 million of spending on infrastructure in this community, how the money was spent, how quickly the money was spent. I did ask former MP Tony Clement about that as well.
Yeah, there's still 12 people on Twitter who want to talk about the gazebo, I guess, the $11,000 gazebo. I'd love to see a $50 million gazebo, what that would look like, but it was actually $11,000. But, I look at it from a longer perspective, which is it really took Muskoka to another level and something meaningful was accomplished. Sometimes these confabs, they get a press release or a communique out, and then everybody forgets about it. But here, the Muskoka Initiative is still part of the world working together to improve health outcomes for moms and for their babies. And I think that's something that Muskokans, even if they weren't aware of it, they should be aware of it and they should be proud of it. I think the G8 was perfect for Muskoka. It was the right size. And, that the G8 is all about creating a convivial atmosphere for 8 world leaders, plus there's probably about 15 world leaders there because they always invite other people. So the South African president was there, the Indian president was there. So to allow them to have just a relaxed atmosphere, not end the formalities, have relaxed talks. And certainly the atmosphere around Muskoka was like that. When, David Cameron, the UK Prime Minister, takes a dip in Penn Lake first thing in the morning, that doesn't happen at summits usually. So and the Russian delegation renting jet skis in Minette to take in the lake. So these things don't usually happen, and I believe that helped create an atmosphere where they could trust one another and get some things done for the world.
So, yeah, some interesting perspectives from the man who did help bring the G8 summit to Huntsville. Scott, we talked earlier in the week about some of your memories because you did cover this event. So, I understand there's a few other things you wanted to bring up that you were really remembering.
Yeah, I mean, just the atmosphere in this community. There were motorcades everywhere. I remember once coming up the highway and they were practicing a motorcade going up and down the highway at one point. Just really neat things that you don't see in Muskoka. It really got real for me the night before the summit happened, watching on live TV as the leaders would arrive one by one at Pearson in Toronto, and they would be helicoptered up here. Okay. So you would see them on live TV at Pearson. Within about 40 minutes, and I lived south of Huntsville at the time, you go out on the back deck and you would see all the choppers coming by. So we knew they'd landed in Toronto and then they were on their way to Deerhurst. It's like, this is getting real. This is getting real. So again, so much fun to go through this stuff this week. And yes, of course, there was controversy around the event and everything else. But, you know, for a major news event, it was pretty neat to cover. So we're going to wrap up my little week tomorrow as I look back. Just, again, a bunch of clips. And what I've got tomorrow, James, is basically, it's a clip that I created that ran 10 years ago on the night before the summit began. And it's basically, it sets everything up from Prime Minister Harper announcing it was coming, all the ups and downs of the planning. You'll see the Summit Center in very early stages of construction. You'll see talk of the G20 that was supposed to happen here and then ultimately didn't. It's a really neat retrospective leading right up to the G8.
Very cool. We'll look forward to catching that tomorrow. And Scott, thanks so much for taking us on this little trip back in time. It's really been interesting.
It's been fun. Thanks.
All right. We are going to take a quick break, but stay with us for more after this. Welcome back. Here's a quick recap of our stories today. No new infections of COVID-19 to report in Muskoka. Pot shops are coming to the district as soon as this July, and we'll have a final look at the 10-year anniversary of the G8 Summit in Huntsville tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. We've also had municipal facilities closed for a while in this recap, but good news, looks like Huntsville is preparing to open Town Hall again on July 6th. We'll have more details on that soon. And that's Cogeco News. For more information on the program, head over to yourtv.tv and remember to watch us live at 5 Monday to Thursday from everyone here at Cogeco News. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.